Welcome to Soccer in 60, presented by the Empire Strykers. Get ready for your weekly look at all the pro soccer teams in Greater Los Angeles. We've got all the news and analysis you need, from LAFC and the LA Galaxy to the Empire Strykers, Angel City FC, and Orange County Soccer Club. Now, buckle up and enjoy Soccer in 60.
Welcome indeed to the fastest paced soccer show in SoCal. This is Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System, covering all the week's news, highlights, and more from LAFC, the Galaxy, Angel City, Orange County Soccer Club, and of course, the Major Arena Soccer League's very own Empire Strykers. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, JR Liebert, affectionately known as The Scarf. Thanks so much for joining me. It is a fearsome foursome on the podcast tonight. Welcoming him back from his European tour, Mr. Timmy Kolach. Tim, my friend, good to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. The epicness of the European vacation was similar to Chevy Chase's, except mine was a 12 out of 5 stars.
We are glad to have you back, my friend. And joining us are both members of the Laguna Galaxiana podcast, Ananda and Rob. Ananda, welcome back. And Rob, it's been a minute. Welcome back, my friend.
It is a delight to be here with you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good to be back.
All right. So much to talk about as MLS Finals Week approaches. That's right. It's time for the MLS Cup. It is going to be a fun one, unfortunately not involving any teams in the Southland. LAFC formally says goodbye to their head coach. Big player news out of Orange County. Angel City inks an extension, and we've, of course, got Rob and Ananda to talk a little Galaxy, but the talk around the Inland Empire was the massive win for Coach Onua Obasi's Empire Strykers squad to open the seasons against bitter rivals, no less. So we're going to talk quite a bit about that later in the show. But first, of course, we've got to check in with our friends over at Omnitrans. In partnership with the Empire Strykers, experience the thrill of game day with Omnitrans. Be in the heart of the action at Toyota Arena and let Omnitrans take care of the ride. Simply download the Transit app to catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on the Strykers. Don't miss out on the excitement and make every moment count at Toyota Arena. Ride with Omnitrans to your next Empire Strykers game. And don't forget, we will be on with Strykers head coach, the reigning MASL Coach of the Year, Onua Obasi, in just a little bit. But boys, I know this is the fastest paced soccer show in SoCal, but let's talk a little national action. MLS Cup final. It's Vancouver, it's Miami, and it is a big one, of course, with Thomas Muller, Leo Messi, and everybody else that is set to take the pitch. Let's do a real quick round robin. Your quick thoughts on MLS Cup. Timmy, you just got back from Europe. Your thoughts on the MLS Cup?
I think it's going to be a banger of a one. This one's going to be fun. You know, you've got Leo and his whole camaraderie that's, basically half of the Barca team. And you got Thomas Muller taking these guys and making them play at a much higher level than they had previous. I think it's going to be a great game to watch.
Yeah, Rob, what about your thoughts on MLS Cup final?
Just like Timmy said, it's going to be a fantastic match. It's one of those things where you look at a Vancouver team that had been pretty consistent all year. Their first-year coach, I believe Jesper Sorensen, am I saying that right? Just elevated them just a little bit more from where they were. And, it's going to be one of those matches that you saw kind of coming from the beginning of the year. These teams had been kind of favorites at the beginning of the year, and now look where they are.
Yeah, and Ananda, the star power will be there. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Scarf, I argued earlier this week on our pod that this is the biggest MLS Cup in league history. You think about the 2 stars that are on each side. You think about just from that gravitas alone. I mean, this is the first time where we're going to have a World Cup winner in the MLS Cup finals. And by the way, we're going to have 2, right? So just to have that level of stardom, it's going to be a spectacle to watch for sure, and it should be a really, really fun one.
Yeah, the last ride for Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets as well. Of course, there was a very interesting article on MLS today. I think it was The Athletic. Does Messi's legacy need an MLS Cup? The answer is no, but that was fun clickbait on an article. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look, it's very rare that you get some of the biggest stars at the biggest time. And of course, when the Apple TV deal came through and when Lionel Messi signed on the dotted line, this was Don Garber's fantasy. Just get him to MLS Cup. It's why we have a round of 3 in the first round. It's why we have the playoff system that we do. It is to get Lionel Messi here. So that being said, it's going to be a fun one. I'm personally rooting for Tristan Blackman, the former LAFC guy, but that's just me. All the Messi fans can direct all of their hate to me. My name is Christian Philemon, so find me on the internet. Let's talk about the Galaxy. Guys, there might not be any matches happening between the Galaxy right now, but there are plenty of Galaxy players in the news. Galaxy stalwart, all-time great, maybe Galaxy, Omar Gonzalez, back in the news now as a player coach, I believe, for the Chicago Fire too.
Exactly.
Rob, when I say the name Omar Gonzalez, what comes back to you?
You know, I had a cousin of mine actually text me like, "Hey, did you hear about Omar?" And I said, "Yeah, that's great for him. I mean, last great Galaxy center back that I can remember. Just bang on. You could always depend on him, right?" And excuse me, that's been one of the things that's been lacking for the Galaxy the past couple of years is a defensive leader. And when you look at Omar, he was that defensive leader. Now he's going to give all that knowledge to all those young lads there and at Chicago Fire too. They can't have a better professional, better player, and better coach to guide them through that.
Yeah, Chris Brady just coming up from Fire 2 and now with the Chicago big club and getting some looks with the U.S. men's national team. Ananda, another piece from Galaxy days gone by, Todd Donovan leaving Sacramento Republic to become the sporting director underneath that City Football Group umbrella of NYCFC. Ananda, a fantastic job that he's walking into fresh off an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. What do you think Todd Donovan's mark is going to be on these NYCFC club?
Yeah, I mean, he did a really, really good job in Sacramento. So I expect the same kind of level of excellence. I mean, he showed that as a player. He's one of those guys, if you think about the Galaxy folklore, I mean, you think of names like Donovan, Keane, Beckham, Zlatan, but Donovan was one of those unsung heroes. And I think within the Galaxy faithful, you know, the fans really appreciate what he meant to this team. I mean, arguably he might have been the last good left back on the LA Galaxy, as Rob's talking about Omar Gonzalez. I mean, he is definitely up there, man. Apologies to Ashley Cole, etc. But no, he's an unsung hero. Really,
he's a serial winner.
Serial winner. Yeah. What is it? 5 MLS Cups? So yeah. Ridiculous, right?
Yes, plenty of titles.
Yeah, Darlington Nagbe gets all the love, but Todd Donovan stacking those MLS Cups as well. Tim, one of my favorite Fleetwood Mac albums, 1977, of course, Rumors. Ooh. Rumors, a fantastic album, and Rumor season amongst the Galaxy faithful now begins. First and foremost, one of the biggest names, maybe the biggest name that was cut at the end of the 2025 season in MLS was Christian Benteke. And of course, him of his aerial exploits and all of his fame playing over in Europe. Let me ask you, and then I'm going to get the boys from Lacuna Galaxiana, Ananda and Rob, to talk about this as well. But Christian Benteke as a fit for LA Galaxy up top.
I've been thinking about this one since, over the past day or so. And is it going to be something like a Sonny coming in like he did for LAFC, or is it going to be something, not? And this is the big question. I don't know if he truly fits that style of the LA Galaxy. They have to get a big name, but I think it's worth a run to go see if it's really viable. Unsubstantiated rumors is the talk of the town. I think it'd be worth a run just to try and get him in there and put him up top for a while and see if he can put some of the goals in, because they don't have, until Ricky gets back, they don't have somebody that can put in 15, 20 goals a season.
Yeah, Ananda, we've seen his aerial supremacy throughout Major League Soccer over the course of his time, although a little bit less this last season. Still, no doubt, he's amongst the elite. What are your thoughts on a Benteke Galaxy partnership?
You know, I was torn on Monday when we talked about this on our podcast, and I'm still torn about it because one side of me, Scarf, says that we need a goal scorer. We need a fox in the box. We need a poacher, a true number 9, a true target man. And Christian Benteke is that, and he's shown that in this league, even though last year he took a little bit of a dip with 9 goals. But I think for me, that's more of an indictment on how bad DC United was versus, you know, how good Benteke is. I mean, he is a 15 to 20 goal a year scorer, and that's what Greg said he wanted at the end of the season. But then I look on the flip side is, okay, do you want to give TAM money, max TAM money, potentially again to another 35-year-old on your team? We already have one. So then it goes to like the team building thing. So I'm torn, but if this does happen, I'm going to welcome it with open arms because he's a proven goal scorer in this league.
So we go from Fleetwood Mac's rumors to Natalie Imbruglia's torn. Rob, your thoughts on Christian Benteke in a Galaxy kit?
Yeah, I mean, Ananda pretty much summed it up nicely. I mean, do you spend TAM money on a 35-year-old? Sure, that you know his production dipped, but everybody's very, very right. Like the talent is there. Now, if you line him up in a system where you have Ricky playing underneath them and you have Joe Paints and Pecky on the right, I mean, the man's going to be dangerous. He is. I mean, but he's not going to be a long-term solution. So again, to Ananda's point about team building, you could probably get a really, really good season out of him, but you're not going to build for the long term around him. But the Galaxy also do need depth. They're going to be playing a lot of competitions this year. So is the money there? I'm not sure. Greg and Will have both been talking about multiple players coming in. Is one of those Christian Benteke on a TAM deal for the right money? Maybe $750K. Sure, why the hell not?
Maybe a player you bring in for something like the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which the draw coming up December 9th. We are recording this December 3rd, so just 6 days away from the CONCACAF Champions Cup draw. Their first match could be anywhere between February 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So a player that maybe you could plug and play up top for this initial run, maybe saving the legs of some players for the rest of the MLS Cup and other competitions this season. So it could be very interesting. Isn't this also, Ananda and Rob, about that time of year where we start hearing those Cristiano Ronaldo rumors to Galaxy once again starting up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually spoke to his agent today, and you know, it's definitely happening. It's definitely
Wasn't the Strikers going to sign him last season?
Yeah, Cristiano. It's wherever the biggest bag is, he'll be headed to. Unfortunately, someone who's headed away from a club here in the Southland would be LAFC's former now head coach, and that sounds weird to say it out loud because it's officially official. Steve Cherundolo. The Cherundolo era is over. The 4 years of Steve Cherundolo, 2022 to 2025. And let's just remind everybody real quick how it started. Winning MLS Cup in his first year, losing in the final his second year. And after that, look, the results in the big matches were not what LAFC wanted for the most part, but they were still playing in huge matches and challenging for trophies every single year. 2024, they did win the U.S. Open Cup, which we didn't get to defend in 2025. Thanks, Don Garber. Look, the bottom line is people like to say that the team he inherited was Bob Bradley's team and that the championship belongs a lot to Bob Bradley, but it's not like LAFC was on the precipice of a cup in 2021. They didn't make the playoffs for the only time in club history. They finished 9th in the West, 17th overall in points. Our leading scorer had only 14 goals on the season. The offense was lacking. So 2022 comes in, you bring in Giorgio Chiellini, you bring in Denis Bouanga, and sure, Gareth Bale for 1 goal. That was a kind of an important one. And it propels LAFC to the Supporters' Shield and the MLS Cup, scoring 13 more goals, giving up 13 fewer. And after that, according to LAFC fans, that's when the winning stopped, which is kind of crazy. He crossed the 100 win mark in those 4 seasons, needing 190 some odd matches to do it. Look, the bottom line is he is probably the most divisive person to ever work for or be a part of the black and gold. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on the Steve Cherundolo era. First, Tim, you were there watching all 4 years of this thing from kind of a neutral perspective, I think. And what were your thoughts on the 4 years of the Steve Cherundolo era?
If anything, if anybody gives them any grief about anything but a super ridiculously, amazingly successful adventure at LAFC, I think they're in the wrong. I mean, you can say it was Bob Bradley's team all you want, but are you kidding me? You have a plus 26 goal differential 1 year later. Given you get, some studs. I mean, we didn't know how big of a stud Bouanga was going to turn into, but that guy just came in, lit the place on fire. But to say that he stopped winning after his second year, that's just incorrect. They played a lot of really big matches, as you said. Did they always come out on top? No. But at the end of the day, there can only be one winner. And, if anybody came to me and I was an LAFC fan and said in 4 years you're going to go to 2 finals, win one of them, win a couple of supporter shields, win the U.S. Open Cup, sign me up, baby.
Yeah, I hear you. And look, some of the blame needs to be laid at the foot of the front office, right? The Olivier Giroud experiment was terrible. Cengiz Under, Javier Del Rosa, and Alexander Beluza, and others who they brought in up top. But Anand and Rob, I know you guys are the hosts of the Lacuna Galaxiana podcast, but look, I know Steve Cherundolo is someone who you both have watched for the last 4 years as well. I think, Ananda, you might call it hate watching, right, from time to time. Your thoughts on the Steve Cherundolo era?
Yeah, I think we touched on this last time, Scarf, and it's funny because like I hear sort of the rumors or the murmurs in the LAFC camp. Like if I just scroll my timeline and look at what the LAFC community are saying, and I think for them it's mostly like they're ready to move on. But if I take a look back and just look at the body work in totality, I mean, Scarf, he won trophies. And that's the number one thing you want, right? As a coach, as an organization, you want to win trophies, and you want the chance of winning trophies. Correct me if I'm wrong, Scarf. He reached three finals overall, or sorry, 6 finals and won 3 trophies overall. So he's kind of checked off both boxes. Now, I think the argument could be made that, post or in the last season or so, like he hasn't had the desired effect. Like maybe he's made some questionable in-game management calls, etc. But look, I'm going to put it this way. And if I compare this to like Greg Vanny's body of work the last 4 years, I think Cherundolo's blown him out of the water, right, guys? Ooh. I mean, just based off of the appearances. I mean, I know that's a big call, but Greg Vanny hasn't had the best record in the last 4 years. If you look at finals appearances, coaching record. So, I mean, I really can't say much. For me, it's a success. I mean, he got them to where they needed to be, just couldn't close the final door in those last moments. But again, 3 out of 6 finals. I mean, 3 out of 6 trophies. I'll take it, man.
Yeah, Rob, you were ready to jump right in. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a big shock to say that Cherundolo's time at LAFC is more successful than Greg Vanny's. I mean, they both have 1 title earned. I mean, I think Cherundolo has a couple more trophies. I was actually thinking this entire time that even though El Tráficos are usually very contested and they go either way, overall, I think if you would ask, and it would probably hurt for them to admit it, but I think if you were to ask Galaxy fans to keep it a buck, like keep it 100, they would say that LAFC has been more consistent over that Steve Cherundolo period than the Galaxy have been in the same period. I mean, I don't get the hate. The man brought trophies, but there was something kind of missing, and it just makes me think back to when you, Scarf, were interviewing Denny Bouanga, and you asked him, "Hey, Denny, why did you get taken out of this game?" And Denny Bouanga was like, "I really don't know. I don't know. Basically, I don't know what this coach is doing." So the vibes were off. It just had to happen. It needed to change.
Yeah, and he announced early on in the season, so it made it a little bit easier. Either way, it's not easy to say goodbye to our 2 friends, Rob and Ananda, but we are going to do that now. Guys, thank you so much for checking in with us yet again here on Soccer in 60. We hope to see you guys again next week.
See you, boys.
Well, there you go. Look, let's check in with our friends here at National Core. National Core is one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers and a proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strykers. And at National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives just like they do. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. And to learn more about National Core and their mission, head on over to nationalcore.org. We've, of course, got the big interview with Empire Strykers head coach Onua Obasi coming up right after we discuss, Timmy, the massive start to their 2025-26 campaign. It's time to talk some Empire Strykers. And I want to remind everybody, season tickets and tickets for the December 12th home opener can be purchased at theempirestrykers.com, and that's strikers with a Y. So head on over to theempirestrykers.com to purchase tickets for the opener on December 12th. It will be against those very same San Diego Sockers, who, I don't know, Tim, it wasn't just one or two matches. It wasn't just 5 or 6 matches. It was 14 matches in a row that Empire Strykers had lost before their opening day overtime win, 5-4 down in Oceanside, brand new Front Wave Arena. Tim, what does that say about where the Strykers are at the very beginning of the season and what they're poised to do in 25-26?
I think it says a lot about the prep that the team has done, that the front office has brought in a new set of guys. You know, there's a lot of new blood on the team. Most of these guys have been around, MASL for a while. But I think what it says is the prep that the coaching staff has done with the team and the level of intensity that the Strykers already have put into place in their training sessions over the past 4 weeks. I think it says volumes about the team itself and what the coaching staff has really done, Scarf, to get these guys ready for what is basically a sprint to the finish with the hyperactive scheduling that they have, and with the 8 major teams that they have, and they're all loaded.
Yeah, look, that's the thing about a rivalry, though, right? Is you can throw out records, you can throw out all kinds of things. It's just grit, determination, and execution in the key moments. 14 straight losses to the San Diego Sockers in this rivalry. Mm-hmm. And, oh, by the way, the Sockers will tell you that it's only a rivalry for the Empire Strykers, because the Strykers have been the one climbing uphill for the last 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, right? But this was one of those grinded out matches where, Tim, it was never larger than a 1-goal difference on either side. It was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. I mean, it was a classic back and forth, but it started to look the way that many of those matches of the last 14 do, right? Empire comes out, they gave up the first goal, but then clawed right back, took a lead. I mean, Munir Alami was fantastic. Marco Fabian got a goal, but you head into the fourth quarter, it's 3-3, and then Strykers, of course, found themselves down 4-3, hostile arena, under 3 minutes to go, and De Leon with the equalizer to send the match to overtime. Tim, let's just stop right there before we talk about overtime. This was a match where in seasons past, the Strykers would not have found a way to get that thing back level.
Nope. They would not have, Scarf. You've hit the nail on the head on this one. They would have not been able to look themselves in the eye and say, you can do this. In the fourth quarter, they looked themselves in the eye. Everybody on the bench told themselves, you can do this. You can do this. Let's go get it done. And they did not buckle like a weed like they have in years past. And for the equalizer to come that late, and then do, I won't spoil the ending, we can get into it with the overtime winner, but the ability for the team to scratch back and get that equalizer late in the game, it says volumes about what the coaching staff is doing. And Coach Obasi mentions it and talks about it in the interview that we got coming up. But yeah, you're right, Scarf. They would not have done this last year even, much less 2 or 3 years ago.
No, you're absolutely right. And look, one of the big reasons why they were even in that position in the first place, Brian Orozco, who might be the next up and coming big star in MASL this season. We know of the Sports Center heroics that he was able to put on last season, and he tried again in the extra period, in overtime, taking the ball all the way down past the midfield stripe. And it was one of those that he launches yet again. And it was, it probably was going to be off target, thanks to Munir Alami and that beautiful noggin of his, putting it into the back of the net for the win, 5-4. But to have a player like Brian Orozco, almost a 770 save percentage in the match, absolutely incredible. And then for him to be a part of your offense like that, that was massive. But let me ask you one other thing, Tim. Munir Alami, he was in the Rookie of the Year conversation last year in MASL, and here he is with 2 goals in the opening match. We talk a lot about Justin Stinson and Marco Fabian. Could it be that we've added a third head to that monster in Munir Alami?
Absolutely. We've talked about this multiple times on the show, talking about how they need, you've got Berto Palmer, who was clearly man of the match with 8 whopping credited blocks for the game. But you get a guy like Munir that comes in, puts himself in harm's way, dives for that ball, and gets the header to win the game. Yeah, absolutely. Now you don't have to have Stinson and Fabian take on 6-7 goals a night between them. Now you can win. You can win out on these 5-4 1-goal games, which again the Strikers would not be able to do 2 years ago.
Listen, who better to talk about the big win? Our producer Gunnar Burnt sat down with the reigning MASL Coach of the Year, Onua Obasi. Let's get to that fantastic interview now. Tim, you were there for it. A fantastic interview. Let's get it going. Let's talk to Coach Onua Obasi.
All right, here on Soccer in 60, we are very privileged to get to talk about the highest level of indoor soccer in the world. And joining us now is a man who 6 days ago coached the Empire Strykers to their first win over mighty San Diego in 14 games. 14 times they couldn't manage a win, and they finally did it, mind you, on the road. Last season, the Empire head coach returned the Strikers to the playoffs after a 3-year absence and was voted MASL Coach of the Year less than 2 years after leading Newtown Pride to its triumph at TST, the world's most prestigious small-sided tournament. We're so happy to have with us Strikers head coach Onua Obasi. Coach, thank you so much for coming on, and welcome back to Soccer in 60.
Thanks a lot, mate. I appreciate the nice accomplishment intro. It's nice to be back for sure.
Great to have you on as always. Let's jump into it. Lots of exciting stuff to talk about. I mentioned it in the intro, 14 straight losses to San Diego. Last season, every single game against the Sockers was really close. Then 6 days ago, it almost looked like another one where Empire came really close to pulling off a win, but then a couple key moments win it for San Diego, but not this time. This time around, the Strikers tie it late and go on to win in overtime. How relieved are you, first of all, that you guys for once ended up on the right side of an intense battle? And do you think it says anything about this season's team as opposed to last season's team that you were the ones that won it this time?
Yeah, I think it was super close, wasn't it? So, as you said, you mentioned the word relief because it felt, unfortunately, it did feel like it was heading the way of many of the games of last year where, we play them really tight. We were up in stretches and looking good at times. And then they find a way to win, and we make a few mistakes, and their experience shows through at the end, and we, go home with the loss. But obviously this time, I think, unfortunately, I do think that could have happened if the ball bounces a different way, but hopefully it is a good omen of things to come and a change in our mentality and our level, our standard. But yeah, super relieved to get that win. Obviously, Brian hits a great shot, and Munir super brave to put his head on that ball, because I know a lot of people, maybe myself included, wouldn't want to put themselves in harm's way. But yeah, well worth it in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, that probably would have taken my head right off. let's relive this really famous win over San Diego just for a minute longer. Let's enjoy it a little bit longer. As expected, it was a battle with very little between the two teams, as you said. If you don't mind, could you take us inside the match from your perspective on the bench? How did it pan out tactically throughout the 4 quarters, and how did you try to impact the game from the sideline?
Yeah, for first quarter, we'd been obviously preparing for San Diego for, definitely in earnest for at least 10 days. We had, 3-week preseason, and we had a week leading into this game as well. But we started to think about them, pretty early on. It's a good 10 days to kind of understand what we're going to be up against and some of the mistakes that we made. So I think the first quarter reflected that we really were on it, and we really were focused and played our game and really neutralized them. And I think they felt that themselves. They did score an early goal, but we got one back, and I think we got a second one back, and we were in the ascendancy. And then, unfortunately, second quarter, we let it become, a shootout, and we attack, you attack, we attack. Let's see who scores first, and that's a game that will always favor, in my opinion, San Diego, because they just have so much experience and so much quality in those transition moments. So the second quarter was not a pleasing quarter from a coach's perspective watching it. But then you go in at halftime, you get to speak to the guys, you get to tell them, hey, the game's getting out of hand here. So third quarter we started better again. It was like kind of a mirror of the first half. We started better again, on top, and the game settled into a rhythm. And I think 3-3 at that point is probably fair. They score a 4-3, which is a little controversial. I think there was a little bit of encroachment on the set piece, but they got away with it. They scored a goal, and that put the pressure right back on us. And that's where it was like, not having some deja vu here. I hope we can dig something back. But we stuck to how we played late on with using our goalkeeper, and we were able to get the goal. And I thought it was well deserved to go to overtime. And then at that point, it's who's got energy left, who's going to find that special moment. And obviously we scored a great goal to finish it. So yeah, that's kind of how I read it. It was a frustrating game. I'm not going to pretend like I was happy, like super happy about the performance. I told the boys a win is a win, whether it's 2 points, 3 points, tight game, blowout game, you have a win in your column. But the level was not at our level, and we need to do better. If we're to win that same sort of game again, we need to do much better.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, let's talk again real quick. You had mentioned it a minute earlier, talking about, Munir putting himself in harm's way. But really, when it comes with Brian Orozco, the spectacular play from him, he puts that shot on it, and only Munir is going to be able to get that. For those who are unfamiliar, what is it about Brian that allows him to come up big like this in such clutch moments? And do you feel he's taken even a bigger step forward towards this off season?
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, for me, I've been super impressed by Brian since I came in. I actually was teammates with him maybe 5 years ago. So, his improvement from when I knew him to now, the maturity and the quality. I was just telling him the other week in training, he's just elevated his game to a level I didn't think maybe was possible when I played with him. He was right at the start of his career. I was at the end of mine. So he's been really good. He has 2 fantastic goalkeeping partners, which is Clayson De Lima and Brandon Gomez. So there's a lot of competition there, good, healthy competition. All 3 have good personalities. They got on well. So I think they push each other, and that's helped Brian, who's the youngest out of the 3. That's helped him, I think, really. It's like if you have a big brother, you're always fighting against someone who has a bit more experience, a bit more, a bit longer in the game. So I think he's just improved. I would say that game was a mixed bag for him. He wasn't as clean as I would want him in the future to be with the ball at his feet. Made some great saves, and obviously made an error on one of the goals. And there's a couple of scary moments for us, which he knows, and we speak about these things. He knows to improve in those areas, but then to have the mentality to come back late in the game and finish the game for us, and then go into overtime and make a huge play, like hugely instrumental in the final goal. So, it's a testament to him. And I think, we grow as a team from moments like that, but he grows, even more as an individual.
Yeah. So let's move on from Brian, and in the brace from Munir, a player who seemed to be everywhere, especially on defense, was Captain Robert Palmer. He was officially credited with a whopping, ridiculously high number, 8 blocks in a game. Obviously, Berto is a 2-time MASL Defender of the Year. How do you assess his performance in this game, and what role did he play in both Tavoy Morgan and Nick Pereira, 2 of the very best forwards in the MASL, ending up with 0 points and 0 assists?
Yeah, no, Alberto he was the man possessed for sure. He stood out. He's a monster out there. Both of those guys probably outweigh him and are taller than him. He's not a small guy by any stretch, but the level of physicality he brought to them, and even his quality on the ball when we needed him to connect passes, and he's got a ton of quality on the ball too. So the fact he just was able to kind of shut those guys down, I'm sure that's it's very difficult to do. I'm not sure how many people are going to be able to do that in a season. Even when we play them again, I know it's going to be difficult. Yeah. But no, he was fantastic. We spoke about it in the week that he's going to have to, stand on his head, and can the rest of the team help him, and can we stop the easy balls into the targets? So it was a team effort, but no, he was left isolated with 2 all-stars, and he came out on top on both of those battles. So real testament to him and his professionalism and his preparation to play that intensely for such long minutes.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you're just joining us, our guest today is Empire Strykers head coach and reigning MASL Coach of the Year, Onua Obasi. And Coach, I want to ask you this. We've touched on the headline-grabbing performances from Alami, Orozco, Palmer. Is there anyone that you want to highlight from this game? Perhaps someone who quietly did things that you felt made a major difference, but didn't necessarily stand out to people. Someone who maybe even surprised you by showing better or stronger than you were expecting them to play. Which performances stood out to you in this game against San Diego?
Oh, it's a really good question. Yeah, there was a few. To be honest, obviously, me, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd for my stats. So I go through each meaningful play and, calculate, give each one a score. And so at the end of the day, I have like a list of performance, like an index. And yeah, the unsung heroes, Berto was way ahead, but Berto was like twice as high as the next guy. But, the likes of Alan Perez, Polo Hernandez, Andy Reyes, these are players who, for most of last season, they go under the radar, but they consistently make important plays and keep the team ticking over, and they're a catalyst for other things to happen around them. For example, Andy got the pre-assist on Abdul Mansour's goal. So for me, those are the guys who were the glue pieces, didn't make many mistakes. They just, follow our understanding of our game and put players in positions to do well. So yeah, those guys were exceptional. Obviously, Berto stands out, and Mania, obviously they're more reflected in the stats. But if you really pay attention to the game, you'll see players like that just are invaluable.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, you've mentioned a couple of times that you've had to tweak your tactical approach after your first season with Empire, given that some of the teams were kind of clicking in and figuring out how to cope with it. We've seen you maybe be more strategic about when you send the goalkeeper forward. And, we don't want you to give up all the secrets because, you're on a Empire Strykers show and we can't give away everything. But what are some of the adjustments you felt you needed to make?
Yeah, I think last season, obviously I inherited a team and I was, late coming into preseason. So, some of the ideas were, sound great on in my head, and then I have to, coach a new team and see what works and what players we have, and, how much resistance to change or how much, out of the ordinary the tactics are. So I think just with a whole off season, I was able to really sit down and really study some of the best teams. For me, Chihuahua, unbelievable team. And I think the closer you can get to a team like that is closer to an ideal, perfect way of playing indoor. If you can replicate some of the things they do. I thought San Diego, for me, were really good last year. You know, them and Chihuahua were neck and neck. For me, Chihuahua was a little better, especially at home in their small field. But I basically went away and looked at these teams and said, you know, what are they doing differently that we can try and match, we can try and replicate, try and copy some of the elements. I brought in some new players, you know, so that helped me play how I really wanted to play, because I could kind of handpick some players now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you put it all together, I think fundamentally indoor soccer is, you know, 5v5. I think that's where the game is at its best, I think. And Chihuahua showed that, you know. So for me, I think, yes, the goalie, obviously I love using my goalie. It's something that's in my DNA as a coach. And even as a player, I used to, without really any specific tactics, I used to run patterns to bring the goalie in during live play. And I was fortunate to have coaches who would kind of let me kind of do what I wanted. So now as a coach, it's still part of what we want. But for me, 5v5, I think we're good enough now. We have the personnel. And if we do the small details right that Chihuahua do so well, sustain attacks and, you know, press well and these sorts of fundamentals, then I think we'll be really good.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just have one more question for you. We can't let you go, obviously, without looking ahead to the rematch. Let's say one more time that it's on Friday, December 12th at Toyota Arena. Folks can get tickets by heading to the Empire Strykers. Again, that's theempirestrykers.com. Strikers with a Y, folks, don't forget. After shattering attendance records with their final home game of 24-25, the Strikers now hope to bring out another massive crowd. And I wonder, in front of your home fans, what do you expect, first of all, from the Sockers? And do you plan on making any adjustments to your approach in that game?
I think from their perspective, I think they're going to want to, you know, press. I think it's important for if I was their coach, you know, I'd be saying, hey, we have to press, we have to disrupt them. You know, those periods where it was too comfortable. So yeah, I think, and they did make that adjustment in the game. To be fair, they kind of made it more messy and more transitional and stuff like this, and that was important, you know, to help swing the momentum back towards them, like they did in the second quarter in particular. But I think from our angle, we just got to get better. I think it's important to understand that we won the game, but the performance level wasn't good enough. There was a lot of details we missed. You know, some of our best players didn't play well. So I think, you know, I think as individuals, we have to be better. There's some things, you know, even as a coach, in terms of the preparation, you just have to look at every detail and say, where could we do better so our performance is higher? And, you know, we're addressing that in the week. We're lucky enough to have 2 weeks before the next game, in between games. So that gives us a lot of time to kind of, sit down and say, hey, this wasn't good enough. Let's improve here and let's focus on this. And we have the time, thankfully. So yeah, I think you'll see a higher quality game from both teams, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm. It speaks volumes about you that you're looking for things to do better and for things to say to your players that need to improve for the next game. That's why you are the reigning MASL Coach of the Year, and that's why the two of us are not. But I just want to say thank you so much for delivering a win over San Diego. It's something that everybody in the Empire has waited for a very long time, so we're really excited about that. And thank you so much, of course, for your time and for your insight today. Really appreciate it. Onua Obasi, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Cheers.
And there you go. The reigning MASL Coach of the Year, a performance on opening day that gets him right back in the running to repeat in 25-26. A fantastic interview. And again, don't forget, go to theempirestrykers.com for your tickets for December 12th's home opener. Let's head over to Angel City. And there's not a ton to talk about right now as their season ending, but they are getting their roster set for the 2026 season. Although a player who was already under contract for 2026, Angel City announcing an extension for Neely Martin through 2027. Look, she came over late in the NWSL season, made an immediate impact. And Tim, I've got a question about that for you in just a second. But she started the final 6 matches of 2025, played the full 90 in each, registered an assist, her first assist for the club in the final match of the year in Chicago. But let me ask you, you're going for 20 some odd matches during the course of the regular season, and then a player like that comes in and takes starting minutes. What does that say, number one, about Neely Martin, but also, does that ruffle some feathers in the locker room? What does that do for team chemistry, especially late in the season when things were rough for Angel City?
I think it was the exact point as to why she did come in, was to ruffle feathers. And that's why you're looking at some of the goalie things that Angel City had. They bring in new goalies midseason, and they're immediately getting starting time. You bring in Neely Martin, and she immediately comes in and gets starting time, plays the full 90, like you mentioned, in a couple of games. I think that was the whole idea, is to come in, and the players had to realize that the only thing that matters in Los Angeles, in NWSL, in Professional Soccer League, is winning. And Scarf, I think that's exactly what the coaching staff was brought in to do. And it's why you had an exodus of some players, and why you bring in other players that they believe are going to help the team win.
Yeah, and you talk about winning, bringing in players with a championship pedigree, also extremely important. Before coming to Angel City, Neely Martin made history by becoming the first field player ever to step in as goalkeeper during an NWSL playoff match. So let's just talk the versatility that Neely Martin has to play, to be the one that's picked to play keeper. That's got to be some impressive athleticism and versatility for sure. Oh, by the way, because she stepped in goal, she helped Gotham capture the 2023 NWSL championship. So there's something to be said about bringing on a player that late in the regular season, but they have that championship pedigree about them, helping to teach the rest of those women in the locker room how to win, what it takes to succeed late in the season. You know, something that she's going to cross the 100 appearance mark in NWSL next season. I believe she's at 92 appearances coming into the 2026 season. Also earning her first ever call up to the U.S. Women's National Team camp in January of 2025. And here's the quote, Tim, and I want to get your reaction to Neely Martin's quote. This is on Angel City's website. She said, "My short time in LA has made me even more excited for the future of this club. I see the vision that Alex," and that would be head coach Alex Strauss, "and this team have, and I'm fully bought into it," said Martin. "I can't wait to execute that vision to the best of my ability for this city and for our supporters. I'm excited to continue what we've built during my time here, and I can't wait to do it with the best team." Those are some big words for a team that finished, second from the bottom in the standings this last year. But when you read something like that, when you hear something like that, Tim, what are your thoughts?
The exact words that everybody needs to listen to in that quote, Scarf, are buy-in. I've bought in because I see the vision of Coach Alex Strauss. These are things that are very difficult for a professional athlete to see when you don't buy in, and then you're on the way out. If you're not buying into what Coach Strauss is about to build here and is 6 months into his rebuild of Angel City, you're sayonara. I mean, look at some of the players that have just recently left. You mentioned them last week, and they both signed for the Utah Royals, right? You look at those two players, or the half a dozen players that have made the exodus. Coach Strauss is looking for one thing and one thing only. You're buying into my system, and we will win.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is going to be his way or the highway. They didn't bring him in so that the players will help him how to coach. It's going to be the way that Alex Strauss wants to do it. We've seen veterans leave during the course of the season, and of course here in the offseason, players who had been with Angel City from the jump. And so this team being remade in head coach Alex Strauss's image, and Neely Martin is going to be a part of that now through 2027. And it'll be interesting to see if she can get another call in to another U.S. Women's National Team camp. Only good things coming for Neely Martin in the future over these next couple of seasons. I wish I could say only good things for the county boys down in Orange County. But Tim, you missed our last episode, and there were a couple of players I want to talk to you about that we actually spoke about last episode. But before we get to that, let's talk first about Orange County's Nico Ben Alcazar, back for 2026, the versatile defender in the 2025 season with Orange County. Ben Alcazar logged 29 appearances and almost 2,600 minutes. And oh, by the way, contributing 4 goals from his defensive position. This is according to their press release with Nico. Orange County gets a defender who can play multiple roles, handle pressure on the ball, contribute offensively when needed, and adapt to different tactical setups. As the club continues to build and stabilize, having a multi-tool like Ben Alcazar gives the coaching staff more options and ensures dependable performances from the back. And I know, Tim, you had some big praise when we were talking pre-show for Nico Ben Alcazar.
Yeah, the guy is just an absolute stud. I mean, we had him on the show earlier in the season, and you could just tell that he was geared up for a great season. And like the press release says, he played, I think, 5 different positions for Orange County this season. He played all over the back line. He played in the center. He played a lot of midfield. And he's one of these players that he knew what it was going to take to have that season. He hit the gym hard. He was doing extra training, and you could see it immediate effect. And then he got a little bit of a bite to him as well. You know, there was that game against Vegas that he was ready to rumble, and it was like, you know, WWE out there, except that it wasn't scripted. And you could just tell that he was ready to go, and it's been rewarded with a nice new contract in Orange County. He gets to stay here for another year. And, I could easily see him making a jump at some point to some of the higher levels of soccer, whether it's here in America or overseas.
Yeah, a player who was making the jump. We're not sure where yet, though, unfortunately. And this was a big one. Friend of the show, Colin Shuttler, Shutout Shuttler, is officially leaving Orange County. He was in net for 94 matches since coming over in 2022, including 2 U.S. Open Cup matches, 6 USL Championship playoff matches, where, oh, by the way, he was at his best, 50% clean sheet percentage in playoff matches. Orange County had the one quote on Instagram about Colin Shuttler: "You gave us moments that we'll talk about for years." And just to remind Orange County soccer fans of those moments, March 9th, 2024, where Colin Shuttler comes all the way up on the final set piece of the match versus Sacramento. The header in the 96th minute ties the game at 2. That's right. We got a good old-fashioned goalie goal, and the Sacramento crowd absolutely stunned. And in those 2024 playoffs, the last ever match for Tim Howard's Memphis 901 squad, as Colin Shuttler kept a clean sheet for all 120 minutes of their playoff opener, 5 saves, 120 minutes. And I love his message to the fans, Tim. Playing in front of you at the Champ was an honor every single time. Your thoughts on a little bit of a postmortem, and it's got to be a quick one, unfortunately, for Colin Shuttler.
Yeah, it was an honor to get to watch him play. And he, friend of the show, like you said, we had him on the show the week after he scored that goalie goal. It was amazing. It was one of our first interviews on the show. But just a great guy. I've met him a few times. Just a stud, absolute legend. Congratulations, Colin. Wherever you end up, Godspeed, man. Love you, and good luck in the future.
Absolutely. We'll have to get your thoughts on Dogman and Hagart, who are back in 2026 next show. But let's talk about, it's not the best 11 this week. It's not even the Elite Six. It's Greater LA's strike force, with the Empire Strykers being the only club in action. We thought we would highlight 3 incredible performances. Yeah, we talked about them earlier in the show when we were covering Empire Strykers. Yeah, Coach Onua Obasi would want to talk about them all show long if we could. But a player who I think you and I maybe didn't give enough flowers to. He had 51 blocks last season, a perennial contender and often winner of MASL's Defensive Player of the Year, Robert Palmer with 8 blocks in that match. Tim, just talk about what it means to have Berto on that back line anchoring your defense.
It means a lot, especially to the Strikers, because when you win a game by 1 goal in this league in MASL, somebody had to stand on their head, to steal some of what Onua Obasi said. And this is what Palmer did. He stood on his head, 8 blocks. He's keeping the ball away so that the balls that do get in on the goalkeeper are easier saves, as it were. Nothing's an easy save when you're a goalkeeper putting your life at risk. But it's one of those things where you get a guy like Berto coming in, just being an absolute stud in this game. And he's absolutely player of the match, not to take away any of the flowers from Munir, but with 8 blocks and just the physical presence that he brings, it was just the man of the match for me.
Yeah, Brian Orozco, by the way, is that goalie who Berto was protecting there with those 8 blocks. We mentioned it, almost a 770 save percentage, and another offensive contribution, a game-winning assist for Brian Orozco. Look, between the many goalkeepers that Coach Onua Obasi has rotated through over the last couple of seasons, it appears that Brian Orozco has kind of risen to the top of that list now, especially with his performance against San Diego on opening day. And just one more thing to talk about before we put a bow on our Greater LA's strike force this week, not a best 11, is Munir Alami. We talked about him as potentially emerging as that third option up top. If you've got to now watch out for wherever Munir Alami is, if you can do it while sharing the turf with Justin Stinson and with Marco Fabian, that makes him incredibly dangerous. But now if you can give Stinson or Fabian a little bit of a rest by inserting a player like Alami and get no drop-off, 2 goals, including the game winner in this last one, that is a massive, massive increase in productivity for the Empire Strikers. So really happy to see Munir Alami doing well. Once again, this has been the fastest paced soccer show in SoCal, Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC Health System. Want to thank Rob and Ananda Gunner for help with the interview. And of course, my man Timmy back from Europe. It's so great to have you, my friend. Welcome back to Soccer in 60. And we hope to see everybody, including my friend Timmy down there, next week on Soccer in 60, brought to you by SAC